speakers. We have Carlos Pascual, Head of Connected Energy in Iberdrola, Guillermo Menéndez from AWS, is Senior Manager in AWS Energy, and me, Juan Ignacio Iñaki Codoñar from Deloitte. Today, for the today agenda is, first of all, we are going to have a brief introduction of the energy. Sorry? Sorry. For today's agenda, we have an introduction about AWS for energy. After that, we are going to see how AWS help clients to innovate and to improve their systems. Carlos is going to provide a brief introduction about Iberdrola energy platform. And finally, me as Deloitte, we are going to introduce you and explain how we have built the platform for Iberdrola. So, Guillermo.
Thank you, Iñaki. So, as Iñaki says, the idea today is we'll try to explain how did we start from the beginning when Carlos called AWS and told us, hey, we have this idea, this project we want to build, and how were we able to move from there till the moment we are now with the platform in production. So I will start by the beginning, which is what is the team I work for, which is AWS for Energy. I will also try to tell you a little about the different tools and mechanisms that we have at AWS to help our customers innovate. And then I will pass the word to Iñaki. So you all know the energy industry. Energy is everywhere. At the end, from the moment you wake up in the morning, you are at home, then you commute, you go to work, you travel, industries, commerces, etc. Everything is powered by energy, right? I just want to provide a really 1,000 feet vision of the energy industry today. So if we start from the right of the energy value chain, you get the traditional oil and gas industry, right? We start by downstream, where we extract the raw materials for oil and gas. So we explore, we produce, and then we move into midstream, which is all the transportation and storage of all these raw materials of oil and gas. And then finally, the third part of the traditional oil and gas industry is downstream, where there's refinement of these materials, and there's also the processing of the materials. But together with oil and gas, we also have our means of generation, right? So first of all, baseload generation, where we have first, thermal generation with coal, which fortunately this is being reduced nowadays. Also, carbon-free or less carbon-intensive generation like hydrothermal and also nuclear, sorry. And finally, we have the new means of energy, meaning renewables, right? Solar, gas, geothermal, etc. Besides the generation and transportation of energy, then we move into the distribution of that energy up to the final customers, right? So in one side we have gas and oil pipelines, and then we also have the power grids, the national power grids at the countries, and the distribution companies for energy. Together with that, in parallel, we also have companies that are devoted to water and wastewater management and circular treatment of the water. And finally, we have the end customers, the people who is consuming energy. First of all, we have the retail energy customers like you, like me, at home. We also have commercial and industrial. And finally, we have a new kind of customer, which is the prosumer. And this is the person who is not only consuming energy from home, but they are also producing it through solar panels, and maybe also storing it in batteries, or maybe in their electrical vehicle at home. So that's the main target of, as Carlos will explain later on, this is one of the main targets of Iberdrola's smart energy platform. So from the AWS for Energy team, we have been watching or seeing some trends in the industry in the last years, mainly these three ones. So first of them is the electrification of around 50% of the primary energy sources. So we are seeing the usage of gas as a transition fuel. We are seeing a massive deployment of new plants for solar and for wind, renewables, and also the appearance of new business models like energy storage or, for example, geothermal also. Secondly, we are seeing a much more a growing focus into energy infrastructure security. As you have seen the last 1.5 years, there are certain global events like wars, like wildfires, storms, natural disasters that put into risk energy supply at some points in the world. So energy companies and also governments are looking into making this energy distribution more robust, and also to distribute the energy resources, not put everything in the same jar, right? So they can ensure the distribution of energy for the population. There's also an increased focus into cybersecurity for IT and also for OT, for all the technical installations in these companies. And finally, we are seeing a trend into decarbonization of the end customers. So we're speaking about these prosumers, people who is producing energy at home, people who is using electric vehicles, people is more and more concerned about the power consumption they are doing at home with applications, with monitoring, looking into being less carbon intensive. So that's, again, probably one of the focus of the system, of the platform that we are discussing today. So then what's AWS for Energy? That's the thing where I belong. We are a global team inside AWS. We're part of AWS for Industries. We are several hundreds of people that combine cloud and IT knowledge with industry knowledge. So we have experts from the energy industry. And our goal is to support customers from the energy industry globally. For that, we support them into optimizing their efficiency, being able to manage their assets in a more efficient manner. Secondly, to drive their business agility. So we try to help them to improve their decision-making across the whole company and across the whole energy value chain. And finally, we also try to support them on increasing their business intelligence, getting into digital transformation, leveraging the scale and the speed of the cloud in order to be faster and to move faster. And at AWS for Energy, we not only support these customers, it's not just the commercial team, but we also build solutions. What's a solution? A solution is a set of assets which are packaged in order to solve a business problem or a business challenge, right? These assets may be code, source code, maybe infrastructure as code, reference architectures, agreements with integrators, agreements with software and hardware manufacturers. So all that comes packaged, so it's easier for a customer to get started into solving one of these business issues, challenges. As you can see there, those are some examples of the solutions we have been building in the last years. You have, sorry because of the color, but you have a URL there where you can find the full list of solutions and our roadmap for the coming years. And also, if you are interested in these solutions, I invite you to visit the AWS Expo re:Invent in the Venetian. There you can find the AWS for Industry Pavilion, and inside that there's the AWS for Energy Corner. I have some colleagues there showcasing some solutions. For example, we are showcasing the Carbon Data Lake solution, which is, as the name implies, a data lake where customers can ingest and store their carbon generation information, and they can easily use standard metrics in order to calculate Scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, right? And it also makes it easier for them to generate reporting for other emissions. There's also another one on seismic workflow interpretation, for example, where we combine certain software workflows with a set of specific hardware in order to accelerate and decrease the cost of seismic workflow interpretation. So those are some of the examples that you can find if you go later on to the expo and speak to my colleagues. They will be keen on showcasing it to you. That's AWS for Energy. And now, before moving on, I would also like to tell you a bit about what are the mechanisms and the tools and the teams that we have in AWS to help our customers innovate better and faster. And that's a good example of how did all this started with Iberdrola and how did it help us to get to this point. And I will start with a quote from Jeff Bezos. You probably all know him. He's the founder and executive chair of Amazon. And in his yearly letter to the shareholders some years ago, he was speaking about invention and about experimentation. And there he said that in order to invent, you have to experiment. And if you know in advance that the experiment is going to work, that's not an experiment, right? Because you already know it. So you are not experimenting. He said there, the text is smaller, but maybe you can see it. He speaks about failure. And he says that failure and experimentation, failure and innovation are like inseparable twins. Amazon is a really good place to fail. We are prepared for that. And we understand that failure is just a way of helping move forward, right? So that's something internal, that's a quote. But just with a quote or good intentions, you don't go anywhere. So the idea is that in Amazon, we organize for innovation. For that, we follow 4 pillars that are, first of them, the culture. So the leadership principles we have at the company, we hire builders, we let them build, we let them fail. Secondly, the mechanisms, then the organization, and the architecture. So I want to focus just in 2 of them. I won't be too long around this, but I want to focus in mechanisms and architecture because those are the ones that were really applied for each project, and I think it's interesting getting deeper on them. For mechanisms, they are just encoded behaviors and tools and programs that support innovation at Amazon and support innovation for customers. And one of those mechanisms is prototyping. What's a prototype? At the end, something that is sitting in the middle of a demo of a single feature, for example, and a production system, right? So in the middle, we have a prototype. We are just taking a set of use cases, maybe some KPIs, and we want to prove our point. We want to demonstrate that something that we have in mind is going to work, right? So we do a prototype. And at AWS, we have different prototyping teams for AIML, for IoT, for serverless, etc. And these teams support our customers into building prototypes. That was the case with Carlos when we started some years ago in this project. And these are usually short engagements, time-bound engagements, or 4-6 weeks, where we try to demonstrate the art of the possible. We take a really well-defined set of use cases we want to prove. We also define some KPIs. We agree with the customer which KPIs we want to maximize or to demonstrate that it can be made. And so with this constrained scope, we start an experimental and collaborative process. And what we try to do is always putting some people from AWS together with people from Iberdrola or from the partner from Deloitte, sitting together for 4-6 weeks and working together. So in the moment that the prototyping is finished or the AWS team is leaving, the knowledge remains with the customer, or remains with the partner. So they can really take that and put it into production. Together with this code that is not production-ready code, it's just like a proof of concept, as the name implies. What we also delivering is enablement tools and also a clear plan on how to get this code, this prototype, into production. So then the customer, the partner, can take that and can bring the system into production. That Iñaki will explain later better, but that was more or less the path that we follow in this project. Start by the prototype, demonstrate that we can make it, some KPIs they will explain, and from that, take it to production. So the other pillar that we want to focus in is architecture. So there are a set of architectural practices that enable innovation and provides the customers with better means for innovating faster and cheaper. And for that, I pass the turn to Iñaki, who will explain.
So, as Guillermo mentioned before, so we need to find out an architecture that supports rapid growth, and most important, so it is able to change very quickly. So in order to do that, so first of all, during the design phase, it's quite important to select those technologies that fit the best of the technical requirements. We will see later what this means in terms of performance, in terms of scalability, and in terms of cost. Another thing when we are talking about architectures, one recommendation both AWS and Deloitte does to the clients is to shift to microservices architectures. With these architectures, each microservices only handle or just support or provide a very specific functionality. So without any relationship or just locking with other microservices. So all the business logic and the data is accessible through APIs. There is no other way to access to the functionality. And these two topics provides an increase on speed in terms of productivity, agility in terms of providing new services, and by the end, it's just providing a higher rate of innovation. The shift to microservices, as Guillermo mentioned before, it's very easy to start the experimentation. So because you are not building a very huge application, but there's just a very small piece of code that you may start making testing or experimentation. So the cost of failure, as Guillermo mentioned before, so is very low because you are not built a big huge application, but very specific microservices. So it is very easy just to throw away the proof of concept or the microservice and start it from scratch again after some failures. And that means this approach enables to make a rapid scale in case of success. So if you think that your proof of concept is fine, it's very easy to evolve on the services and iterate through different versions. So there's also there is another point that according with a study done by Deloitte in 2019, 80% of the developer time is dedicated to operations and maintenance. So there's a huge percentage of their time. So that means a very high cost, very low productivity. So now the developer teams it's quite difficult to keep the pace with the requirements from the business point of view. At the end, everything means that it's a loss of revenue because of loss of business opportunities, because you are not delivering fast enough for keeping the pace. So we need to find out an architecture that just allow the builders to be focused on the business logic and provides a very easy way to deploy microservices. So this is where the serverless architectures come to help us. With the serverless architectures, it's very easy developer just to be focused on the business and provide another additional advantages, such agility. So that's you don't need to deal or manage the platform, just to focus on what you need to deliver. So the performance is much better, especially from the scalability point of view. You may scale whatever you want without any hardware limits. So this is a big advantage. The cost is lower than the traditional approaches. So that means especially in a pay-as-you-go model, so where you only pay for what you are consuming. And finally, you get a better security. That is not an advantage per se from the development point of view, but from the business point of view in general, it's an advantage. We will see later what does it mean as well. When we think about serverless, the first service, AWS service that came to our mind is Lambda. This is quite common, but we should take into account that there are other serverless services in other areas, such data stores like DynamoDB, like S3, like serverless databases, integration serverless tools that could be API gateway, steps, event bridge. So there are other families, serverless families in AWS world. We talked before about the security or the advantages or the increase of security the serverless services provides. So in order to understand this statement, we need to understand what the AWS operation responsibility model is. So in this slide, you see on the left side, the AWS services that are closer to the on-premise world. That could be EC2 or databases installed inside EC2. On the right side of the slide, you may see serverless services like Lambda or DynamoDB. So the AWS operational responsibility model means that the further you are on the left side, the more responsibility you have in terms of management and security of the solutions. And the further you are on the right side, so more AWS is taking more responsibility, both in the management point of view and the security point of view. So just our advice is to be the more to the right, the better. Just talking about just so this how these technologies just help Iberdrola in the transformation of the business.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So before jumping into the consequences, of course, everything you see here are running on electricity. But I would like to ask you, do you know how much energy is needed to run all data centers worldwide, not only AWS data centers? I mean, the figure is difficult. It's around, I mean, from a study coming from the International Energy Agency, it is around 300 terawatt hours. That, again, may be a difficult number to understand how big it is, but it is around 1.5% of total consumption of electricity in the world. It's huge. Okay, so let me introduce a little bit about Iberdrola, because Iberdrola is it's a European company. Well, it's worldwide. It's also in the United States. We are second in the world, first utility in Europe, with a key vision on renewables. Okay, we have more than 40,000 megawatts of renewable capacity around the world, and we are serving more than 30 million customers, and one of them are AWS. And in that sense, we are helping AWS in not only having a cloud reliable, that is their responsibility, of course, but we help them in try to have a cloud that is sustainable. And in the other way, we have the help, as Guillermo was explaining before, we have the help from AWS to use the cloud to build those amazing products for our customers, like the one we want to talk about today. And to grow in this way, we signed a partnership between the companies recently this year. Okay? So as I said, let's jump into the consequences on all the introduction coming from Guillermo.
El asistente Smart avanzado es un servicio que lo que te permite es gestionar las soluciones Smart que tienes en tu vivienda de la forma más eficiente.
It connects multiple smart devices at home under one umbrella.
Crea el ecosistema digital que permite la gestión energética de las soluciones Smart en casa de nuestros clientes, generando un valor adicional sobre cada una de ellas.
El asistente Smart avanzado va a ser un éxito por los ahorros que supone la factura, por la propia optimización que hace el asistente y por los mensajes y recomendaciones personalizados que va a recibir el cliente.
Va a poder olvidarse de programar su vehículo eléctrico o su aire acondicionado. Tiene la tranquilidad de que el asistente Smart avanzado lo va a hacer por él.
It is designed to satisfy users' needs in terms of comfort while saving on their energy bills.
Ofrece muchas ventajas al cliente, el ahorro en su factura y la reducción en emisiones.
Es un servicio muy sencillo, accesible a todo tipo de clientes y te permite además tener una visión y un control de las soluciones Smart de tu vivienda, ya que se gestiona a través de una app.
Para Iberdrola proporciona 3 beneficios claves: el incremento de la fidelización y la digitalización del cliente y, por último, la electrificación de la vivienda. Cuando todos utilicemos el asistente Smart avanzado, habremos conseguido transformar el mundo.
Conseguiremos una mejor calidad de vida, siendo más eficientes y con un planeta más sostenible.
Okay, so let me go back to the introduction Guillermo did about the trends. I want to focus and deep dive a little bit on 2 of them. First one is decarbonization. And this is figures coming from Europe. The change has been and is being amazing. Now wind and solar are producing more energy than oil and gas. And we are just at the beginning. We have targets for 2030, very, very, very challenging. And this is something that is happening worldwide. It may be a matter of time, but everyone is going into renewables because of the sustainability, but also because of the economics. Okay, and this is putting a lot of pressure into the grid and into the power markets. I don't know if you are really familiar to this kind of terminology, but the amount of energy, the amount of renewables we are having every day in some countries is making the energy cost, the price of the electricity go very low. In the middle of the day, when we have most of the solar production, it's going into €0 per megawatt hour. This is an example in April in the Netherlands, but again, it is happening in many different places, also here in the States. Okay. For the people that doesn't know, this has a name, is the duck curve because of the shape of the curve, but it's not staying just there. The thing is that this is same month, same country, the Netherlands. You see it was not zero, it went down to minus €200 per megawatt. It is not you are not paying for the electricity, it's that if you are consuming, you will be somehow being paid for that. So this is going to give, in our case as a retailer, a lot of opportunities to build new products for the customer, and the customer receives somehow benefits on energy management services. And by the way, I told you before, the previous curve has a name, and there's not really a name for this one. So a few days ago, I asked my son if he could help me find out some animal or something that could seem similar to this. And he told me that I love dragons. I think that's the best possible name for this. And now I use always the dragon curve when talking about this. So the second trend Guillermo introduced before was the home electrification. Okay, I don't know here. It would be interesting to know how many people are having solar panels, EV, or maybe a heat pump at home. Okay, yes, few little, yes. But things will change, very quickly. In Iberdrola, we have, and you saw in the video, we have a division that is responsible for developing this kind of services, which is a smart solution. Is providing electric mobility services, solar panels and batteries, heat pumps, and so on, and for houses and buildings. Okay, but going back in how can we help our customers to be more energy efficiency, I always like talking about what we call the energy management value chain. And it's trying to show like the different steps depending on the sophistication of the customer. So the different ways we can help them in, as I said, being more energy efficient. Okay, and the first steps are trying to give recommendations for them. They are looking on saying how much energy you are going to consume at the end of the month, how big your bill or your energy bill is going to be, or things like disaggregating your consumption into different appliances so the customer can understand how much energy they are spending in the dryer, for example, or in the fridge, or situations like identifying that the performance of one of those appliances is not good, so the customer can know that there may be a malfunction in some of them. Okay. Other things that we are telling the customer is, okay, these are the possibilities in this smart solution portfolio, so you can electrify your consumption at homes. But something very important here is we are giving recommendation, we are giving insights, but the one that has to do something is the customer. Okay, so that is the tomorrow. How can we do things so we can take some part of that responsibility to help them be more energy efficiency? Okay, I like always talking when describing a house or a building on two capabilities of the loads you have over there. One is the control capacity, which is how easy you can change a consumption from one time to another, okay? And the other is the size of the load, so how big it is compared to the rest of the consumptions you have at home. So if you draw the typical appliances like the washing machine or the microwave or the fridge or whatever, you can see that it's very, very low on the left, like not giving so much value. But when we start drawing those smart solutions like the heat pump, the smart water heater, or like the self-consumption with batteries and the EV, as Guillermo said before, it's like it's a battery with wheels. So you can see now they are higher, they are on the right. They are really giving value. Okay. Now we are going to be able to draw what's coming next. But an additional characteristic very important in those smart solutions is connectivity. Okay, we know now that they can be managed. They are very big, but the key is that they can be connected and they can be monitored and controlled from outside the house. So we can build services to help the customer do that control remotely. But we can also optimize that for the customer from outside the house and maybe create flexibility services for the network operator so we can benefit the network as well. Okay. We built a platform through this process we have been talking about with a product which is the Advanced Smart Assistant. That is the product we are selling the customer. The platform, it is taking autonomous decisions through artificial intelligence to decide things like, this is not the moment to charge the car, stop the charging session and wait till the moment we know the time of use tariff of that customer is going to be lower. Or maybe trying to move energy consumption to the hours when there is an excess of solar production in the house. Or maybe taking advantage of the thermal inertia. So we decide when is the best moment to heat the house or heat the water we use for shower.
Achieving a more efficient use of energy and taking care of the planet. This is what the Advanced Smart Assistant does. The new smart solution by Iberdrola. How does it work? It's really simple. First of all, you enter the appliances, your habits, and your usage and comfort needs on the app. Second, the assistant's artificial intelligence takes care of everything, adjusting and switching your electrical devices on or off. Third, the Advanced Smart Assistant offers you increased efficiency and bigger savings on your bills, prioritizing the use of renewables and reducing CO2 emissions. In short, more digitization, bigger savings on your bills, and more environmentally friendly. Iberdrola, for you, for the planet.
So let me focus on those advantages for the customer. The first one is the digitalization. We are building this in an easy way through the app, so they can monitor continuously what is happening. Something that is difficult is that we are doing things outside of the view of the customer at the back of the platform. So we need to let them know the real value we are making here. So again, is providing them with monitoring information, but it's also giving again recommendations so we can keep this customer to grow in the energy efficient. At the same time, we are doing that energy management. The second will be savings. I told you it is taking advantage of the time of use tariff they have and moving energy to the cheapest hour. But at the same time, and it really depends on the country, we can also do peak saving, which is avoiding simultaneous load at home, so we don't have to pay, or the customer doesn't have to pay for a lot of power at home. And of course, that is local benefits for them, but there are also benefits we have on the retailer side. One will be moving energy to the hours, and you saw before the hours, the curves in the power markets. So we can move energy consumption to that times where the price in the markets is the lowest. So the energy supply for the retailer is cheaper, and there's a saving we can share with them. And at the same time, I told you also before, we can provide network services to the grid, so we can have an additional income that can be shared with the customer again. And the third one is really obvious, is sustainability. It is trying to maximize self-consumption in the houses. It is facilitating electrification because we reduce that power needs at home. And of course, it's reducing CO2. In the same way we are moving energy into the cheapest hours, those cheapest hours in the power markets are going to be the ones with the more amount of renewables. Okay? This is the kind of screens, it's more complex, but this is the kind of screens we are building that are giving the customer those information that are facilitating them the possibility to give us their comfort limits. One of the things that is very important in this kind of platform is that we don't want to affect the daily life of the customer. So they ask them things like how many kilometers he or he is going to do next day, and at what time they are going to need the car, or maybe what is the minimum temperature or the maximum temperature we can play at home, so we do not affect, as I said, their comfort. And with that, again, we start playing with the algorithms and give instructions to all the devices we have at their homes. Something kind of an ending on what is coming next is, the platform was built with one use case purpose, that the residential customer I told you. But the idea is that the platform at the end is a connectivity platform with different devices, with all the information that is happening in all of them. So we plan to use that to build B2B services like microgrids or EV fleet energy management, or using that to create SCADA systems to understand what is happening in all those devices, so we can have a better after-sales service for our customers. Or maybe creating a virtual power plant so we can provide better network services to the grid. Okay. So in conclusion, three ideas. So the first one is, we have talked about the smart solutions, electrification at home. This is a way to integrate those smart solutions in an energy management perspective. Second is that we are anticipating the needs of the customer that is coming, the one that has huge amount of consumption coming from these new devices at home. And the third one is that new platform that is going to allow us to build new services and applications, and maybe sell these kind of services to other companies that plan to do the same with their customers.
So how we build this platform? So the platform was built in 3 different phases. First of all, Iberdrola had the vision in mind. So what they want the platform to be. So with this vision, as we both AWS and Deloitte work for a proof of concept. So both the AWS prototype team and Deloitte were working around 2 months just to build a prototype. And in the prototype, we validate 3 main topics. First is if we were able to control devices at the home of the clients. Second, if we were able to connect to Iberdrola systems. And the third one, is it possible we need to validate the scalability of the solution. So the proof of concept was a success. So we were able to fulfill all these requirements, especially the latest one in terms of scalability. We validate in that during the proof of concept that we were able to scale it up to 1 million users simultaneously. So after this proof of concept, as applying the microservices architectures, we start to iterate and to evolve these proof of concepts just to get the final solution. So in the final solution, we provide and build all the business requirements Iberdrola had in their vision, in terms of the full functionality of the platform. We started to integrate all the devices we would like to start controlling. So we are talking about air conditioner, heat pumps, electrical vehicles, solar panels. So all those devices are controlled by the platform. So we can control the devices of the home user with those technologies. We integrate with other Iberdrola systems. We integrate the mobile applications, the screenshot we saw before. So we integrate the mobile application with the platform. And finally, we integrate all the machine learning algorithm that is controlling all the devices at the home of the users. From the technical point of view, so this is a high view of the platform. It's 100% serverless. So all the products, AWS products, are serverless. that they give us an advantages that we see later. So we are using Lambdas, that is the core of the solution, but what we are using also API Gateway, we are using SageMaker for all the machine learning algorithm, we are using Event Bridge, and we are using Kinesis. All those services are organized in forms of modules. So we have a module for the ingesting all the data. We have module for controlling the devices. We have module for everything around machine learning. We have modules for handling and storage all the data in some sort of a data lake. So everything is in modules that it is quite easy to add new functionality to the platform. So all the solution has been built following the AWS well-architected pillars with operations in mind, safety, reliability, performance, that we will see later, cost optimization, and most important, also thinking in Iberdrola in sustainability. As I used before, so thank you for using microservices. It's quite easy to extend this platform. That means that integrate new devices is quite easy. We have one module that is taking care of all connectivity with the devices. So in order to add a new device, it's just, if we have a family similar to that device, for example, a new plug or a new solar panel, so we can either try to reuse the current functionality or extend that functionality with new microservices just in one module, just to add a new device. And also, it's quite easy to provide new functionality in terms of business because of the modularity of the solution. It's a matter of having new services, new microservices on some specific part of the solution. Thank you for using serverless technologies. The platform is quite scalable. So during this, when we have built the platform, we also make some stress tests. We prove that the platform is able to scale up 10 million concurrently users. So we didn't find out the breakpoint of the solution, but we stopped just simulating 10 million users because the injectors we use, they couldn't handle more workload to the platform. So we are just quite, we think that the platform can escalate up wherever we want, because we haven't found any bottleneck on the architecture. It's a matter how many hardware we would like to put on this solution. And finally, from the cost point of view, the platform is 100% serverless. So that means that it's a pay-as-you-go model. So it's depending on the number of users they are consuming the platform. So it's the amount of money you are going to pay. So just as a rule of thumb, so the platform has been defined just to pay $1 a month per user. So it's a very low cost, and we have be able to achieve this cost because of the use of serverless.
Every time that the customer switches on the light, we're interacting with them, and it's a great opportunity to do good. We face a great challenge as a society, is to have a sustainable energy system. And we want to help the customer, the citizen, to have an active role in this transition. Now, the question is, how do we do that? Iberdrola is one of the largest energy companies in the world. We are a global company, leader in renewable energy, and with more than 35 million clients.
EV chargers, heat pumps, solar panels, all these smart solutions from Iberdrola are connected devices. So what is important here is how can we provide a tool that controls all these devices that is easily understandable and easy to use for the customers.
As I said before, the main goal is to help the customer, the citizen, to have an active role in the energy transition. Now, from a business perspective, what we are achieving is to have a new way of interacting with our client, a more digital way, a more interactive way. From a technical perspective, what we achieve is to connect via the cloud with different energy devices in a way that we minimize the use of energy, we reduce the bills, and also we help to minimize the impact on the environment. Obviously, we cannot do this alone.
I like it. Come on. Yeah. We have this very close relationship with the people in Deloitte, Victor, Iñaki, Josep, Xavi, all working together every day, every week, while we develop this platform.
Working with Deloitte has been a great experience. They are very deep in the technical side, they are customer-centric, they understand well our needs, and also, frankly speaking, has been very fun to work with them.
A good partner commits with your project. A good partner is with you in the good and in the bad moments. A good partner accomplishes the vision you two share together. A cloud revolution is going to be huge in the energy sector. I live in a house that is already fully electrified, connected to this cloud. I am passionate in this development, being able to expand these capabilities to the rest of the customer in Spain and in other countries Iberdrola has presence.
Okay, so yes, I will say thank you for attending this this presentation. Do you have any questions for any of us? Yep.